Hey, it's Al Calhoun with Coveted Consultant. Today's video is covering how to simplify the complex sale. Specifically, how to simplify the complex sale when the deal size could represent seven figures, right? Seven-figure deals. So really big projects, okay? So I had someone reach out to me. We had a dialogue around how to structure a sales process that is more efficient when you're closing really complex and large deals. For him, sales is done in the traditional way. It is phone calls, it's networking sessions, it's social outings. I mean, it's a lot of hand-to-hand combat. And when you're closing deals of this size, some of that is just par for the course. It's what you have to do because there's a lot of complexity to be navigated, understood. At the same time, he wants a more modernized approach. He's looking to have leads come into him and at least have the person begin the relationship, begin the conversation, instead of him having to always reach out. So what might that process look like? So here's a snapshot of what it would look like and specifically some things you can do to make it simpler. So let's start here, right? We're going to begin with some version of a traffic source, right? So whether you're buying traffic, whether it happens organically, whether you're doing social posting, whatever, there's going to be some version of getting eyeballs to see something. So traffic is going to go to some sort of content piece. Now, this may be a landing page. This may be a white book. It could be a white paper. It could be an ebook. Doesn't matter. Traffic goes to some form of content piece, right? From that content piece, you're going to hopefully that they book a conversation, right? They're going to book a call with you. They're going to ask to speak with you. And then from this conversation, you're going to eventually close a sale, right? That's what you want. That's what we all want, right? We want someone traffic that goes to a content piece, they book a call, they become a sale. Okay, now, here is mistake number one that we make when trying to close really complex sales. We're thinking about the sale up front. So our thought process, and his thought process, was already about how do I communicate this big black box of things that need to be communicated in order for them to buy. All these things that we know, all these things that we do, all these moving parts. How in the world am I going to communicate all of this knowledge early in the process? How do I get someone to buy into all that? Well, here's the trick. You don't. The number one thing you have to do to make this more efficient is simplify all of this wizardry, all of this genius, all of this stuff. We gotta take this out. So let's see it a better way. So we're taking this out, right? So in fact, we're gonna remove the word sale. So when they book a call, we're less concerned about the sale, and now we really want to be concerned about the start. We're going to start a relationship here. So what does it look like now if we're going to start? Okay, so traffic is going to come from, most cases, your initial network, people you already know. That's where you're going to start, especially when you're closing such large deals, right? So you start with this existing base of prospects, but you do want to send them somewhere. You want to give them a sense of what it is that is about to happen or the opportunity that is present for them. So this is kind of in two parts. Who is this person? So traditionally, in your background, with your expertise, given what you know in your experience, who is typically the accelerant internally inside your client's world or inside your prospect's world? Who typically owns the project? Who's responsible for seeing it all the way through? This could be the CEO. It could be the leader of the business. It could be someone else in the C-suite, CMO, CFO, COO. That's all possible. Or it may be someone underneath them. At the end of the day, it's a director or a VP who is responsible for owning this and playing project manager internally. Who is that person? In most cases, who is that person? But then here's what's also important when you think about the content piece. What information do they need to know to qualify or disqualify themselves for the next step? So that person who is typically the internal project manager, what information do they need to determine if they're in the right place and if their organization is in the right place? So I'm talking about things like revenue. How big of a company do they need to be in revenue, in terms of revenue? How about headcount? How large do they need to be? 10 people, 100 people, 10,000 people, 100,000 people in size? What size? There's also some thoughts around. Culture. How should they currently be operating as a company? Are they aware of certain trends in the marketplace? Are they interested in new opportunities that are existing? These are things that you need to know, because we're using this in the framing of start. Right? So to even begin this conversation, to even begin to move down this complexity, where should they be at the beginning? Who is the person that is typically the internal stakeholder? And what scenario do they need to have so they can vet for themselves, so that this person can decide for themselves? This is so the person looking at your content can qualify or disqualify themselves. If they qualify, if they meet kind of this basic criteria, well, then a conversation is appropriate. They can decide for themselves that they should be booking a call to speak with you. And so when they book that call to speak with you, what are you talking about? What is the core thrust of that conversation? You're talking about if you should start the process or not. That's what's happening here. So to be even more specific, what we're saying is all that black box stuff that you know about, that happens out here. Right? So if it's appropriate to start, then we move into the big complex black box. But in the beginning, we're just trying to get clarity. We're just trying to get understanding. We just want to make sure that this is the right thing for us to be talking about. So this could be a 15-minute conversation or a 30-minute conversation. This does not need to be a 90-minute sales pitch with PowerPoint decks and your whole team is present and all that kind of good stuff. Not necessary here. But give people the opportunity to determine, hey, listen, there's a big deal that's available to you, right? There's a big, complex, sophisticated, next-level work that we can do together if you are the right person and you have the right kind of situation. So if you match this basic criteria, go ahead and book that call with us. And now we can begin to have this conversation. We can confirm that you are the right kind of person and that you do have the right kind of situation. If that's true, then we can move into the big block, the big black box of complexity, the complex sale. Now, depending on your particular situation, it is possible that you can monetize this conversation. So again, we're talking about a lot, 7 figures, right? It's $1 million worth of revenue, worth of opportunity, worth of project is possible here. So are we going to move from this conversation right into 7 figures? No, we are not. So then what appropriate diagnostic, audit, initial project, discovery process, what should take place here so we can make sure that the stepping into the black box is worth our time, all of us? And depending on how you operate, this can be monetized. This initial work, this initial project can be monetized. Step back here to make sure that we're all speaking English. You sell a very complex consulting service. And one of the major mistakes that we make is assuming that we have to explain all of that complexity early in the sales funnel. It's hard for you to explain it. It's hard for someone else to hear it. So we want to simplify the communication as much as we can, as early as we can. And secondly, one of the ways of simplifying that conversation is by being clear on who you need to speak to up front and what information, what core criteria they need to meet so that a conversation is appropriate. Third is when you're having this conversation, you're not trying to sell the entire 7-figure deal all up front. That's too much information. Instead, what you're trying to do is assess and clarify that you are talking to the right person and they do in fact have the right situation. And sometimes getting that clarity requires some man hours. It requires an initial project. If appropriate, you can monetize or charge for that initial set of work right up front. And depending on where you conclude here, then the larger deal may make sense at that point in time. So in order to simplify the consulting sale, to simplify the complex sale, that simplification falls on you. So you need to push out your desire to explain all of that complexity and begin with some core fundamentals. Who to speak to, what is a core scenario, and what is the initial work we should execute on in the short term.